Welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Tonight we'll be looking at new United Kingdom laws that could make choking a partner during sex illegal. A federal court issuing an injunction against an obscene Trump administration executive order. He's pulling crap on his way out the door. And the Supreme Court okaying a previous White House request to continue to limit abortion pill access to women with the COVID pandemic as a bullshit excuse.
All right, so the first story that you mentioned is it's a pretty interesting one. It's something that so many people take for granted. How many times have we seen, especially in light of Me Too, how many women have been charging men, sometimes their partners, with this kind of sexual assault, yet the guy always seems to talk about it was consensual, when I was strangling her, when I was choking her virtually to death. Oh, it was consensual sex.
Well, like when we spoke with Joe Court recently about kink and how if that's what people are into and that's what they want to do, right?
Exactly.
But where?
Right. Well, where's the line?
How well? No, I was going to say how well is consent negotiated truly, and where is the role for government to step in and go, I don't care what you're consenting to, that's illegal.
Right. But I think with the purpose of this law and the essence of it is strictly looking at non-consensual.
Well,
right?
it says watchdogs proposing this act the act become a specific criminal offense because of new evidence showing 1 in 5 sexual assault victims are strangled by their partner.
Right. And when you look at how
that's
many
a very
women,
different thing than kink, isn't it?
No, we're not talking about kink here. And that's the problem. People try to blur that line. They're claiming, oh, no, we were engaging in kink. And she's saying, no, he was fucking trying to kill me.
Oh, wow.
Right? And that's really the issue. When we look at some of the data, right, even in the United States, victims of non-fatal strangulation, right, again, non-consensual strangulation, usually during sex, are 7 times more likely to be killed in domestic abuse than non-victims. Wow. A fifth of women who had been raped by their partner say they had been choked. So we're not talking about kink, and that's probably the clearest message we could put out with this. Yeah. Where it's not about kink, it's not about rough sex, it's about abuse that is trying to be couched in kink.
Well, unfortunately, it's one of those themes that's become de rigueur in porn, that guys watch and think, I'm supposed to do that.
That's right.
So if the women in the porn seem to be enjoying it, my partner would.
That's right.
No doubt.
Because right now, the only recourse women have, especially in the UK, if they do kind of bring any kind of charges or complaint, it's a simple assault, just like a slap. And this goes way beyond that. It really does. Yeah. A third of women murdered in the UK in 2000, this is data from 2018, were strangled or suffocated.
Wow.
Right? So
a third.
A third. So this is not, this is not something that is about play. And that's that line, and I think what they're trying to do is really draw that line in the sand.
Yes. So
we're talking about non-consensual.
Eliminate choking unless you are expressly asked to include it.
Exactly. Talk about it ahead of time. Same thing with this slapping. You don't just go up to a woman, slap her on the butt, and then inquire about her patriarchal lineage. You don't do that unless you get permission first.
Wasn't that how David Carradine died?
No, that was autoerotic asphyxiation.
No, I don't think it was.
He was hanging in the closet.
No, he was with a partner.
They assumed he had to be because he was hanging with his hands tied behind his back.
No, the guy from NXS was by
that
himself.
was also, yes, that was hanging.
I think John Carradine was playing with a partner, and breath play just got out of hand. And when you press the carotid, especially an old fart like he was, you'd throw a heart attack like that.
Right, but remember, that was supposed. that was supposed. There was nobody there. They didn't see anybody on security cameras, but the assumption was he had to have a partner because he was hanging there with his hands tied behind his back, and he could not have put himself in that position.
Did they have security cameras in those days?
I think so. It wasn't that long ago.
Our next piece of news appears to be good news on its surface, right? The federal court has injuncted. Is that the right verb?
It is now.
This Trumpian, another one of his last, I like saying that.
Yeah.
His last executive orders prevented anyone contracted or granted funds by the federal government from offering anti-bias training.
Right.
Which would, of course, everybody knows, prevent race-based or sex-based discrimination. So,
right,
as
exactly.
if this orange clown can disgust me anymore.
And again, what they're basically saying is that any organization that's receiving federal grants, if they are offering any of this kind of anti-bias training, they will lose their funding.
Yeah, and why? Why? Because Trump sees this as indoctrination. Isn't that the ultimate irony after the events of last week and the indoctrinating of this rabid friggin' mob that took over the Capitol? Anti-bias training is indoctrination to
not only did he call it
not soon enough former president.
Not only did
Trump.
he call it indoctrination, but especially in light of what just happened in the Capitol, he referred to it in a tweet as a sickness that cannot be allowed to continue.
You know, he is a fucking sickness that cannot be allowed to continue.
And let me just finish this quote here. And asking those in the government to, quote, please report any sightings so we can quickly extinguish.
Sightings.
We're talking about anti-bias, anti-discrimination training.
Oh, my God. He can't be gone soon enough.
No, he
I've
really
cited
can't.
someone talking about anti-racism. Defund them.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's if it was a different context, this stuff would be laughable.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, brings us to our third item of news, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this 4 or 5 months ago, October.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, you picked this up.
All right, I want to start with a quote from where we left off when we first talked about this. Some of you may remember that in October we were talking about how the Trump administration had asked the Supreme Court to basically prevent women from getting the mifepristone, the medical abortion pill, without having to go to the doctor's office, without having to be in person. Now, if anybody needs to be reminded,
5 million other drugs which are mailed to patients every single day all over the country.
Right. Many of them dangerous.
Far more dangerous.
But in case anybody needs to be reminded, we are and have been in the midst of a pandemic that is getting worse, not better.
Well, but that's been their excuse.
Well,
they have a pandemic.
Well, no, that was why they needed to have
for
that.
limiting access.
Well, they basically were ignoring that completely. Let me just read this where we left off in October when we first talked about and kind of, not really breaking, but we first talked about how the Supreme Court put an injunction against that. They said, okay, no, you cannot have that in a pandemic. You can't force women to go in person. Where we left off with that was a quote from Julia Kay, the staff attorney for the ACLU's Reproductive Freedom Project. She basically said that the Trump administration's assertions on COVID were, quote, violently out of touch with reality, and that the Trump administration's claim that COVID-19 is no longer a serious threat would be laughable if it wasn't so cruel. It's past time the outgoing administration accept defeat and the FDA turn its attention to a long overdue comprehensive review of its unnecessary and harmful restrictions on the safe medication used for abortion and miscarriage care. Now, that's where we left it off in October, where the courts, basically the Supreme Court, threw it back to the lower courts, and 3 lower courts upheld that position that women should not have to go into a doctor's office in the midst of a pandemic.
I mean, really, again, especially with telehealth and the whole world we're living in now, what possible reason could there be to force someone to have to go in person to be handed a prescription?
Well, whatever reason they had worked. Because yesterday, in fact, on the 13th, the Supreme Court basically backed that up. They granted this dumpster fire of an administration the request to reinstate restrictions for patients seeking to obtain the drug for early termination.
Oh, and this 8-day confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett was just some weird coincidence? There wasn't any ulterior motive driving that?
No, of course not. Of course not. And this was a 5-4 Supreme Court decision.
Oh,
so I wonder where those votes came from. But I think this is really horrible. Like I said, 3 lower courts blocked the FDA from requiring that, especially in this pandemic.
Our Shiro Julia Kay is back.
That's right. That's right. But we're sort of back to where we were. In order for women to be able to get this medication, they have to physically go to a doctor's office. Now, part of the rule, if you remember, was they have to go to the doctor's office to get the medication put in their hand, but the rule also specifically says the women can take it anywhere.
Right.
So how asinine is all of this?
There's a ray of sunshine, right? Because what the Supreme Court ruling says is that it allowed the FDA rule, which was made at Trump's behest, to stand. When President Biden takes office, he will appoint his head of the FDA, who can make a new fucking rule.
Right, and that can be reversed. That is the good news. But I want to just briefly address what you just asked. What possible reason could they have to do this? Well, look at most of the women who are affected by this. Black and brown and poor women. Right? Yeah. This administration has an official who the fuck cares policy when it comes to people of color in general and women in particular.
And anyone who is least likely able to even get to a doctor's office, especially during a pandemic. Right? Which are usually poor and women of color. Whose only access could be telemedicine.
Yep, exactly.
And why, I mean, in the early days of getting drugs on the internet, a skinny shit like me could call some company, usually in another country, and say, I'm 600 pounds, send me some diet pills. And all of those, Ionamid and remember all of those, there was 4 or 5 of those. Oh, those pseudo-speed diet pills.
Yeah.
And just send them.
Right.
Now a face-to-face interview with a doctor, I mean, how many non-pregnant women are going online with a doctor saying, I need Mifeprex? And you go, I don't know. And besides just going in and getting the pill in your hand, they're not demanding a pregnancy test.
No. It's totally asinine. And Sonia Sotomayor, I think, really in her dissent,
I love her.
Basically called it out directly, saying that this Congress, this court, this administration, and just politically in general, has put the most onerous burdens on abortion more than any other medical procedure, more dangerous procedures, riskier procedures, and medications, yet this is a procedure they continue to single out.
Yeah.
Right?
I've said this for years. A woman can go into a plastic surgery to get breast implants on her lunch hour. And there's nobody making a law saying she must be forced to sit and watch videos of breast surgeries gone awry and exploding implants and women dying from abscesses and said, look at it, are you sure you're going to do it? Are you sure? But with abortion, we have no problem doing that.
Of course. Well, again, because it's abortion, nothing else. I mean, a 15-year-old girl, to your point, a 15-year-old girl can go into a plastic surgeon and get breast implants without any parental consent.
I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah. I've talked to plastic surgeons about that, and they can justify it. But at the same time, a 50-year-old woman needs permission to terminate a pregnancy?
Some states, I don't know if they've ever succeeded with this, but a lot of people want to push for like a husband, father's permission.
Yes.
That if a woman can get an abortion, the dad has to, the father
has to sign off. Yeah, so
it's his body.
It's crazy. You know, people, come on, get over it. It's 2021.
Yes, it really is time. And it's such part of the discussion of sexual health in general, right? We should all be having this conversation. First of all, the most rabid anti-abortion, anti-choice people in this country should be the loudest, most vocal advocates for birth control. Because
sex ed.
nothing, and sex ed, because nothing is better than preventing abortion than birth control and sex ed. And most of these yahoos end up vehemently opposed to all three.
That's right.
And wonder why we're in the mess that we're in.
Exactly.
Leading the world in unintended pregnancies, sex ed, and birth control, and abortions.
Yeah. It would be simple, but they just don't want to do it. All right, so that brings us to the portion that we like to end with, that we call Poetic Justice. And in our Poetic Justice, what do we like to honor?
Well, usually we call out hypocrites and we can keep it a little lighter and just call out schmuckery and dumbfuckery.
It's exactly the words that were in my head. All right, so we would like to honor hypocrisy, schmuckery, and dumbfuckery. All right, so
this is a great story.
For this week's Poetic Justice, we would like to give a shout out across the pond, as they say, to a gentleman who lives in the United Kingdom. And I think probably I'll just read it for you.
It's a short piece. It's fun.
A bar worker in the United Kingdom legally changed his name to Celine Dion after a night of drinking and watching one of his Divas concerts online. He said he drank quite a bit during Christmas and fell asleep while streaming Celine Dion's concert. Several days later, he got paperwork in the mail that said he had legally changed his name to Celine Dion. Right? He, quote, "During lockdown, I've been watching a lot of live concerts on TV. I can only think I've been watching one of hers and had a great idea after a few drinks." He believes that while he was drunk, he went online, filled out the form to change his name, and paid
the fee.
$120 US, and then forgot about it when he woke up. Quote, "I walked in from work and there was a big white envelope with a 'Do Not Bend' written across it. I nearly passed out in my kitchen when I opened it."
I would think he nearly came to. Sobered up.
Indeed.
Real quick.
So changing your name to Celine Dion and really having no recollection of that certainly is worthy of our salute and this week's Poetic Justice.
That'll do it for this week's Sex in the News. We'll see you next Sunday. We are the Siegel Brothers.
Indeed. Stay well.